to the welcome to the fall semester 2025 of Introduction to Speech Understanding. My name is Mark Hasegawa Johnson. I'm going to be teaching. I just want to today cover really the basics of how this course is organized. So I want to describe how you should attend lectures. All of you who are here at this lecture already know this. This lecture is being videotaped so that other students who may not have figured out the URL yet will be able to come to the next lecture. So you see on Canvas, we have the first post is the URL for lectures. That's the URL that you're attending right now. The second post is the URL for homework assignments, and this is the GitHub page. If you open URL for assignments, you'll see that it opens with the GitHub page, and I'm going to spend a great deal of time today talking about this GitHub page and how to go about getting the assignments and then submitting the assignments for this course. There's also a URL for lecture videos. There's a YouTube channel for this course. This picture is not the YouTube channel for this course, but anyway, here we go, Intro to Speech Understanding. There is a YouTube channel, and I will post each of the lecture videos to the KCGI Artificial Intelligence course. Right. I will post
to find the best way to learn math and science.
I will post each of the lecture videos after each lecture to that YouTube channel, so that if you want to go back and see something I've done, you can go back and watch the lecture video again in order to see what I've done. Other material having to do with the course description is available to you in the syllabus, which you can download if you like or just view online. Let's take a look at it online, and that will be a good way to start the semester. All right, so this is a fairly straightforward course, I think, just 1.5 hours per week for 14 weeks. And your grades are determined entirely by homework. There will be 14 lectures, including today. There will be 14 homework assignments, including today. You will download each of those homework assignments on GitHub, and then you will post it on your own GitHub account. And I'll show you how to do that during today's lecture. If you get 100% on all 14 assignments, then you get 100% for the course. It really is that easy. So you should be able to keep track of your credit for the course by just looking at Canvas and seeing your points will be assigned to each homework assignment on Canvas. So you'll be able to see how many points you have and calculate exactly what your grade should be for the course. Lectures will all be online at this URL, at the Zoom URL where we are right now. Lectures will generally have 4 parts. First of all, I'll take attendance. Second, I'll present new material. Third, I will show you how to do the homework. And really, I believe in showing you the homework in great detail. So I will go through exactly how you should do the homework, and hopefully that will make it clear. Fourth, I'll have a question and answer period during which time you can ask for help with the homework. So the videotape that we're conducting right now will be for parts 2 and 3. I will videotape the presentation of new material and the homework, and then I'll stop the video. And then after I stop the video, then I'll turn off my own camera, but I will stay online until 11 o'clock Japan time in case you have questions. And you can ask me questions either using your voice or using a text message. I think that all of you are able to chat right now. Let's see. Yes, this chat seems to be enabled. So you should be able to chat with me if you have questions. Homework assignments will, for the most part, be graded automatically. And what that means is that you'll need to make sure that your code works. It's recommended that you do the homework every week, but it's not required. Late homework is accepted all the way up until the end of the semester. So if you ever get behind, please go ahead and just submit the homework even though you're behind. If you don't like the homework grade that you received the first time, you can submit the homework again. So if you ever submit a homework and you don't get 100% on that homework, you can submit it again. Just go to Canvas and change something in the text box on Canvas and resubmit it. And that way I'll know that you want to have that homework regraded. So you can have your homework regraded many times you want. This is a good reason to do the homework every week, because if you do the homework every week, then you'll know right away whether you've received 100% or some number less than 100%. And then finally, I just want to say that it's okay to get any help you need, including ChatGPT. So you can complete the homework using ChatGPT. You can ask a friend to help you. Any help that you need is okay. And this is the only reasonable solution because it's recommended that you do the homework during lecture while I'm doing it. I recommend that on your computer, you should open up the same software that I'm opening. And whenever I do homework, you should do the homework exactly the way I'm doing it, and then submit it before you log off from lecture. So at the end of lecture, when I have a question and answer period, you can sit and do the homework and make sure that you get it correct. And if you have questions, you can ask questions until you get it correct. Notice that the only limitation here is that with every homework, there's a function called grade.py. And if you change that, it won't have any effect because I'm going to be running my copy of grade.py, not yours. So there will be a file called homework01.py, and next week will be homework02.py, and so on. That's the one you should be changing. You should not be changing grade.py because if you change grade.py, it will have no effect on your final grade. So you should change homework1.py, homework2.py, etc. should be changed every week in order to show that you're following the material. All right, and then finally, just to show you what this looks like, here's where you'll submit homework 1 this week, and I think that's already visible. And it will say, enter the URL of your fork on github.com. So that's what we want to talk about now. Are there any questions so far? All right. Well, welcome. Let's start talking about the first homework. So go to github.com/jhasegawa/intro speech understanding. Let's see, maybe I can make this whole thing bigger. No, it doesn't make the URL bigger. The URL is, well, you've seen the URL. If you go to the Canvas web page, you can see the URL for homework assignments, click URL for homework assignments, and that will take you to the GitHub page. So please open a browser on your own computer, go to the Canvas page for this course, and click URL for homework assignments. And on that URL, you should see something that looks like what I'm showing right now on the screen. So you'll notice that this repository has only one subdirectory for lecture 1. That's because today is lecture 1 and lecture 2 has not yet been released. Lecture 1 is where you have information about homework 1. It also has a git ignore, which tells it what to ignore, a license, which tells you that you can reproduce this file. Everything I'm publishing is released under the MIT license, which is a license that allows you to, free of charge, to copy or redistribute anything in this course. If you find anything to be useful, please go ahead and use it in whatever way you like, including copying it and redistributing it. And then finally, readme.md, which is shown here. So this repository contains assignments for the course Intro to Speech Understanding. And here's what you need to do this week. What's necessary to do this week is all of these steps for getting started. There are 7 steps, and all of them will take some time. So I'm going to kind of walk through them. I recommend that you do all of these steps before you log off from Zoom today and ask me questions if you have any questions. You'll need to do all of those 7 steps, and then you'll need to do this last step of doing the homework and then saving your changes. So let's go through that. First of all, in order to have your homework graded, you'll need to create an account on GitHub. If you don't already have an account on GitHub, you can click this link in order to create an account. So you can sign up for a new personal account. You can navigate to github.com and click on sign up, or you can continue with Google to sign up using your social login. You can navigate to github.com, and if you are not logged in when you go to github.com, you'll see a sign that says sign up that will allow you to create an account. All right. If you follow the prompts, then it will allow you to create a personal account. So I'll go ahead and give you a few minutes right now, 2 or 3 minutes, in order to create an account for yourself, so that you'll be able to follow along with the rest of the lecture. So let me increase the size of this and recommend that if you don't already have an account on GitHub, that you go ahead and create one now. Um, it doesn't require very much information. It will just require an email address to which it can send a confirmation email. So please go ahead and do that if you don't already have a GitHub account. Okay, that was only 1 minute, but is there anybody who would like me to wait a little bit longer so that you can create a GitHub account? No response, so I'll assume that people are okay with this. All right, once you've created a GitHub account, then you can fork my repository into your own account. The reason for this is that the homework will be submitted to your GitHub account, and I will be able to read it on your GitHub account. So you should create a copy of this GitHub account, which is of this repository, which is readable to me. And normally the way that you do this is by forking the repository. A fork is a new repository that shares code and visibility settings with the original upstream repository. So you're making an exact copy of everything that's in the class repository. And the way that you do that is by going on GitHub, navigate to the repository that you want to fork, which is the intro speech understanding repository, not the spoon knife. And in the top right corner, you'll click fork. So if we go back to the URL for homework assignments, and if in the top right corner you click fork, then you can click create a new fork. Now I'm logged in the same account here, so creating a new fork won't do anything. So in order to show you how this works, I'm going to change my account. I'm going to change to an account called J. Hasagao Student, which will let me pretend to be a student. Okay, now I'm logged in as J. Hasagao Student, and now I'm looking at, you can see here's my face in the upper left corner, but in the upper right corner is this funny um, set of dots. This funny set of dots means that I'm logged in as in my student account, which is different from my professor account. In my professor account, I have a photo of myself. Now, if I'm logged in as a student, I can go to fork and I can create a new fork of this repository. And I recommend that all of you open a browser and do exactly what I'm doing right now. So in order to make sure that you understand, go to Canvas, click on URL for homework assignments, make sure that you're logged into your own GitHub account, go to where it says fork here, and in the drop-down menu, choose create a new fork. And this will give you options for what you want the fork to look like. First of all, who is the owner? This should be your account. Here it's showing my student account, but this should be your own account. Second, it shows the name of the repository. You can name it anything you want to, but I recommend using the same name, Intro Speech Understanding, just because it will be easier to remember. It's easier to remember if you use the same name that I've used for it. And the description is the same as the descriptions that I have. Copy the main branch only. This is reasonable because there's only one branch that I'm copying. And then just click the button that says create fork. So let me click the button that says create fork. Now it's creating a fork of that repository. And now here's a new copy of this repository. And we can tell that this is new because you see in the upper left corner is a picture of these dots showing that this repository is owned by my student account. Whereas on this web page in the upper left corner is a picture of my face showing that what's showing on this tab of my browser is the repository as it's owned by my professor account. What's showing on this tab is the repository as it's owned by my student account. And so if you've created a fork of this repository, you should now have a screen that's exactly like this, except in the upper left corner, you might have dots of a different color. Or if you've changed your GitHub profile to have a picture of yourself or a picture of a cartoon character, then the picture that you use for your GitHub account will show up in the upper left corner. Otherwise, this repository is still, at this point, exactly the same as the original. It has the same lecture one, the same gitignore, the same license file, the same readme.md. So up until this point, it's exactly the same. So step number 2, fork this repository in your own account. Now we've done that. Now in my student account, I have a fork of this repository. So step number 2 is done. All right, step number 3, I'm going to assume that you have access to a terminal. And a terminal is a program that looks something like this. It's just a program where you can type commands on a command line. So I'm on a Macintosh, so I can use a command ls to list all of the files in the current directory. I can use a command, let's see, does date work? I can use the command date in order to find out what the date is. I can type the command who am I to find out what my login name is on my laptop. These are just finding commands on the current laptop. If you're here's instructions for opening a terminal in your laptop. If you're running Mac OS or Linux, you already have a terminal program installed. And so you can go to the instructions for Mac OS usually are that you just open up the Spotlight search and type terminal, and it will open a terminal for you. The instructions for Linux, I think, are similar. You just open the search bar and then type shell, and it will open a shell for you. Sometimes you can even just type the word terminal, and it will open a terminal for you. If you're working under Windows, then there is a command prompt that works reasonably well, but I recommend installing PowerShell. And you can install PowerShell by going to this page and just clicking on Install Windows Terminal. And what that will do is it will install a terminal program that allow this terminal program looks very much like the Apple terminal, but instead of running Apple's operating system, it will run PowerShell. In Apple, if you want to, you can install PowerShell. I've installed it, and so if I type pwsh, then it gives me a PowerShell, and now I can type dir, if I remember how to spell it, dir, and it will give me a directory which looks very much like a Windows directory. The colors don't really work on Apple as well as they do on Windows. So you can see that because I've typed PowerShell, it's using file names that are similar to the file names that you would see under Windows. So when you install PowerShell in Windows, you'll get a display that looks something like this, except that the colors will be better. Let me go ahead and terminate that. So please go ahead and install the Windows terminal if you don't already have a terminal on your laptop. And let me again give about a minute for people to install a terminal if you have not already installed a terminal. By default, when you install terminal, so it says set your default terminal application, by default, it will run PowerShell. So when you simply go to open the Windows terminal and go to the settings page, You can choose to run uh, a different program other than PowerShell. You can set it to be the Linux terminal or some other terminal, but by default, it will run PowerShell. You can also create profiles so that you have one profile where it runs PowerShell and a different profile where it runs Linux. All of those are options. You can also change the colors if you want. Open a new tab, open a new pane. All of the configurations are configured in a JSON file that's stored in these locations. All right, let's go on. Let's go on to the next step. The next step is to install Git. So in order to, what Git is used for managing a code. It's used for when you want to work together with other people on a code base. For example, if you want to copy my code and then modify it and then show me your modifications, Git is useful. What Git does is it basically is a communication protocol that will check for the differences between your own code and the code that's on GitHub, and will update in order to synchronize multiple versions of the same software. So if you're whenever when you're working on software together with somebody else, Git is almost essential. You can actually check to see if you already have Git, and you can do that by opening your terminal and then just typing Git. Right? I type Git, and you see all of this information, which shows that Git is installed. Let me increase the font size here. Now that I've increased the font size, now I can't see the whole terminal. So let me reduce the size of the terminal. Let me show you if I type Git, it says that it's currently installed. If Git is not currently installed, you can install it using the GitHub desktop. So on Windows, you can just download the Git for Windows installer and download and set up the latest version of Git. If you're on Macintosh, you probably already have Git installed, and you can just activate it by typing Git version. So if I type Git version, it tells me that the version is 2.51.0. So Apple probably already has Git installed. If not, you can install it using the Mac OS Git installer. Linux similarly probably already has Git installed. If it doesn't, you can do it by typing sudo apt-get update on Ubuntu, and Fedora uses something else. So probably on Linux or Mac, it's probably already installed. On Windows, it's probably not already installed, but you can install it quite easily by just downloading the Git for Windows installer. You can just download Git for Windows. All right. SCM means source code management. So Git is a source code management system. All right, now that you have Git installed, now we have almost everything we need except for you don't have a local copy of this software. And so we need to clone your fork from github.com, from the server, down to your laptop. And the way that we do this is we go to our terminal, and let's see, where am I? I'm not in a very good location, so let me create a new file. So now I'm in a directory called KCGI. This directory is users jhasegawa KCGI. And this is just a directory that I made for the purpose of downloading and installing the software. The software that I want to install is my copy of my fork of the code base. So I want intro speech understanding from J Hasegawa student, not from J Hasegawa. You similarly want to use your own name. So we go here, we find git clone your account name, intro speech understanding. So if I just copy this line over to the terminal, and your account name, it says, oh, that's unknown. Your GitHub account name, no such file or directory. Well, of course, because your GitHub account name is where you're supposed to put in your own GitHub account name. I'm going to write my student account here. if I can type correctly. So I'm going to clone the copy. What clone means is it means make a local copy of what's on the server. And the version that I'm going to clone is the version that's in my own student account, not the version that's in the professor account. So I'm going to create a copy of that locally. Notice that it says it found 514 objects that it wants to copy locally. And now it's receiving the objects. Now it's received 16% of all of the code. It looks like there's a lot more code, a lot more to download. Actually, all of these things it's downloading are past versions of the course. And so if you want to, you can actually go back through the version history of this repository and see past versions of the course. I should probably clean that up at some point because it's starting to be slow. But we'll wait for it a little bit longer. In the meantime, I recommend that you do exactly the same thing. Please open a terminal, find a directory in which you'd like to put intro speech understanding, and then just type git clone https://github.com/yourname/intro speech understanding. All right, finally we have a full copy of the GitHub. Let's go in, well, yeah, let me just change directory into intro speech understanding. Let me go into PowerShell so I can do it using Windows commands. I want to change dir into intro underscore speech underscore understanding. And then I have to list the contents of this directory. And you can see that the contents are exactly the same contents that we had on the web page. If we more readme.md, we can see the same contents that existed on the course web page. If we more license.txt, we can see more license. We can see the same content. Here's the MIT license specifying the license for this package. If we change directory into lecture 1, we can see that there are three files here: readme.md, grade.py, and homework1.py. All right, what's the next step? The next step is to define two remotes. Right now, if I type git remote -v, let me exit out of PowerShell so that so that the colors are a little bit more reasonable. If I type git remote-v, it tells me that I have two remotes attached to this, my local repository. My local repository is connected to an origin, which is my student account for both fetching and pushing. And that's enough for submitting your homework, but that's not enough for you to get next week's homework. If you want to get next week's homework, you need to add another remote, and we'll call it release. So we want to add a release remote, which is the My Professor account. And this time you should really add exactly as it's shown here. So you should add a remote called release, get remote, add release, and this account should be attached to the My Professor account so that you have a remote called release. You can also try, just to make sure, to add your student account. This should not be necessary though. You should be able to do this and you'll discover that it already exists. So we get error remote origin already exists. If I type now get remote-v, you see that there are two different remotes. There's the origin, which is attached to my student account, and the release, which is attached to my professor account. For the origin, you should have it attached to your own student account, not to mine. All right, now that we have the remotes, now there's only one big step left, and that is that you need to have Python on your laptop. You can check if you have Python by going to the terminal and typing Python. And if it does something like this, then you can type quit in order to quit out of it. If Python works on your terminal, then you don't need to install Python. If you don't yet have Python on your laptop, you should install it. And I strongly recommend Anaconda. So Anaconda is a private company that distributes for free a version of Python that includes many different packages. It includes SciPy, which is the science toolkit. It includes NumPy, which is the numerical analysis toolkit. Both the numerical analysis toolkit we'll be using. And there's a link here that says free download. So you can just download that and run it. Free download, get started. Go ahead and do that. And I think you need to check some boxes in order to download it. Sign up with email, and then it will give you an email and an email account and so on. But I strongly recommend Anaconda because it includes a lot of things already installed. All right, once you have Python installed, then you can start working on the homework. So every week, we'll do these following steps. You'll make sure to save your local changes. So if you have any local changes in your account, we'll git commit am saving changes. So let me do git commit am saving changes. And what this does is it makes sure that when I download code from the server, it's not going to overwrite any changes that I've made locally. So I do this in order to save changes. It tells me your branch is up to date with the origin main. And so we're nothing to commit, working tree clean. All right, now that we've saved the changes, now I want to fetch the release and merge the release. So this git fetch just downloads everything that's been distributed from the release. Remember, the release was my professor account. github.com/jhasegaw intro speech understanding. So let me git fetch from the release. I'm going to fetch everything that's been published on the release, including any changes that have been made since last week. So it creates a new branch release main, and now I want to merge the changes into what I already have. So I do it, and I'm going to merge the main branch of the release. This -m means add a comment. And this allow unrelated histories means that if I've changed something on my local version and the release has changed something else, then those two things are merged automatically. So we can type git merge release /main m merging release, and then allow unrelated histories, and that should do a perfect merge. In fact, it says already up to date because there are no changes yet. Now I've got everything that I need. I've got lecture one, readme.md, and now I can actually do the homework. All right, so let me go into lecture one and let's try looking at the homework. Let me actually just open up a text editor and edit the homework. Text editor, what I want to open is homework1.py. Oh, it's already showing here. I want to open the file called homework1.py. And you can see that this is the homework for the very first lecture of Introduction to Speech Understanding. Your first homework is to change each of the two following strings. String 1 should be changed from change this to test. String 2 should be changed from change this to hello. Oh, and it looks like they're already changed. That's interesting. I wonder if I've already published it with the homework already changed. Okay, so the published version doesn't have that changed, but for some reason my local version already has that changed. Let me go ahead and change these. String 1 equals test, string 2 equals hello. All right, let me go ahead and save that. Let me make sure I'm in the right place. I might have it be in a different copy of this. Lecture 1. Oh, I am in a different copy. Oops. All right. I want to go to my home directory, and in my home directory, I want to go to, oh, where am I? KCGI. And in KCGI, I want to open lecture 1, homework1.py. Here we go. This is a version that doesn't have it changed. Make sure that you're editing the version where you just downloaded it. And we want to change string 1 to hello and string 2 to test. All right. The homework for this week is to make these simple changes on your own computer and then to publish them back to your web page to your page on github.com. So as soon as you make these simple changes on your local computer, now we'll go and we'll publish it back to our local change on github.com. Let's go to Jay Hasegawa student and we'll take a look at lecture 1. We'll take a look at homework1.py and we see that it's still there, says change this, change this. And so let's figure out how to change that online. The way that we change that online is we go to, now that we've done the homework, now we want to save the changes and push them back to the GitHub fork. We do that by adding all of the files that we've changed and then committing those and then pushing them back to the origin. So let me do those things. Git add dot adds all of the files that I've changed. Git commit m saving changes, it saves those changes. And it says one file was changed with 2 insertions and 2 deletions. And now I want to git push origin main. I'm going to need to enter my GitHub account. Jay Hasegawa student, and I'm not sure what my password is. Oh, that's interesting. Just a minute, let me stop sharing and see if I can look up my password. Well, okay, authentication has failed for me. It says password authentication is not supported for Git operations, so I'm not able to make this change in this way. Let's solve that problem. I think I'm going to solve that problem in the following way. I think I'm going to change this to test. I'm just going to edit it directly on the code is read only, switch to the editor. I'm just going to edit it directly on the web page. I'll just change this to test and change this to hello.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Oh, I've got an app listening to me.
All right. Shuffling music.
All right, now we can check to make sure that that worked. We can go to our local account and we can type Python grade.py and it will grade the homework. And it says success score 0%, test not equal to hello. Ah, change string 1 to test and string 2 to hello. Well, I'd better change that. This one should be test and this one should be hello. All right, now let's try running grade.py again. Okay, so locally I'm getting 100%. So that means that if I can get my version on my GitHub account to have this, to look the same, that should be worth 100%. So once we have the version on github.com uh, operating at 100%, the git push has an error. Here are some extra tricks you can do, and but basically once you have the version on github.com that looks exactly the same as the version that you have on your local account on your laptop, then you should be able to run it. Let me just ask for directions on GitHub authentication. All right, you can create personal access tokens. I don't think that's necessary though. I think you can use passwords by default. Let me see if I can figure out what my password is, and if I can do that, then I'll show you how git push works. Otherwise, that's it for the homework for this week. The last thing that you should do is take your account, your GitHub repository URL, as shown here, and go to Canvas and open homework 1. And where it says enter the URL of your fork, enter this information, github.com/your ID name/intro speech understanding. And what I will do is, as soon as you've submitted that, I'll go through and run grade.py on your code in order to make sure it's working. So please go ahead and try that now. We have another 40 minutes left in the class period. I'm going to stop recording. Stop sharing. Stop the transcript if I can. There we go. Let me stop the recording.